Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, a free site, bettingangle.us, a free site. It is June 1st, 2024. Boxing's abuzz right now about an interview involving Terence Crawford, where Crawford was asked who would win, himself or Floyd Mayweather. Now, Mayweather is a guy who quietly behind the scenes has expressed a lot of admiration for Terence Crawford. Right? Both of these fighters respect the other a great deal. Now, before I go further, in my favorites folder right now is a very important video in which they list the top 10 heavyweights of all time. Burt Randolph Sugar, if you remember him, boxing historian, he's on the program. Teddy Atlas is on the program. Brian Kenny is on the program. And they actually have, as they start the show, the heavyweight they've designated number 10, Larry Holmes, in studio. And in studio, they asked Larry where he thinks he ranks. And Larry holds up one finger. Larry feels he's the best. The reason why the interview is spectacular is because Holmes, who was Ali's main sparring partner for years, then makes the case, right? Burt Randolph Sugar says, hey, you were fighting guys like Alfredo Evangelista. And Larry calmly points out that Evangelista fought Ali. Larry goes on to talk about how his jab was better than Ali's after a certain point in time when he had been in Ali's camp for a while. Understand, there are those, Ernie Shavers, who fought both, who support Larry Holmes on the power of Holmes's jab. Well, Terence Crawford believes he beats Floyd. Terence pointed out that he's always going to take himself. Right? Terence, like Larry Holmes, believes in himself. Now, here's the big question, because I'm just telling you, legacies are more complicated than we think. Right? Now, we're in the moment, we're in the era. I want viewers here in the comment section of this YouTube video to tell us whether they believe Terence Crawford could ever pull off what Floyd Mayweather did in beating one of the great fighters of our time, Canelo. Right? Let's remember, Floyd faces Canelo. Floyd at the time has a bad hand. Floyd meets Canelo in the middle of the ring. He is not running, folks. And he dominates the opening of the fight. It's masterful. Please pull up the video. Understand that Canelo has a huge left hook even then. But understand that Mayweather is so confident in his abilities, and this is an older Mayweather, that at times Mayweather allows himself to be in the corner where he's dodging Canelo punches. If you want a clip of such an exchange in that fight, please go to gamblersadvisory.com. It's on the page. Right? Understand, so dominant was the mastery that after 6 rounds, Dan Rayfield, a very known, very credible boxing writer, had Mayweather up 6 rounds to none. Right? If you think the Dave Moretti scorecard from the Haney-Lomachenko fight is puzzling, if you look at the Mayweather-Canelo fight, one judge had that fight a draw. At the time, we were all baffled because Mayweather had completely tamed the young lion. Now, I know Mayweather had a lot of fights against guys with huge names, right? He beats Manny Pacquiao. That's another open question. Could Crawford, and I think the world of Crawford, but could Crawford have beaten Manny Pacquiao? Even that older Manny Pacquiao, right? Mayweather beats Oscar De La Hoya, which was big. Because understand, Oscar was bigger than Floyd Mayweather, right? Physically. There was a question going into that fight on whether Mayweather even belonged in the weight class in which they fought, 154. Mayweather's clearly the smaller man, right? Let me make another point too. And I understand. In the moment, Terence Crawford has done everything we have asked. And I mean everything we have asked. Right? But understand, Mayweather beat some fighters who were huge for the moment. Right? Diego Corrales, folks, I'm just telling you, they were both unbeaten going into that fight. And I'm just telling you that folks were surprised at how that fight turned out. The feeling was that Corrales was too big for Mayweather, right? But Mayweather's also beaten some all-timers, right? Oscar De La Hoya, I would argue, was more feared than Errol Spence, right? Manny Pacquiao, folks, he's a legend. Several weight classes, several championships, right? Canelo, who's legendary. Several weight classes, several championships, undisputed at 168. Does Crawford have that resume? Right? Let me also point out something too. The fighters are different. Crawford is more like LeBron James, and I know I'm going to upset a lot of people with this, but Crawford is more like LeBron James. LeBron is a master, but LeBron's not the freak athlete Jordan was, right? I know young guys give me grief on this whenever I run into a LeBron fan at a bar. Okay, fair enough, right? I must have Jordan fan on my forehead or something like that. Somehow they know I'm an MJ fan. But MJ's a freak athlete. In other words, there's a period in MJ's career where he was a better athlete than he was a basketball player, right? It takes MJ a few years to learn that turnaround jumper, right? But even before he learned the turnaround jumper, MJ, like Kobe, I'll name another guy, right? Kobe, the period where Kobe's a great athlete but still learning the game's even longer, right? The beginning of Kobe's career when he's straight out of high school. But it's like you can spot the freak athletes where the guy's learning the game. Right now with Mayweather, and I'll be diplomatic here, but I want people to go back to Mayweather winning his first title against Renato Hernandez. Mayweather is that rare oddity who was a master, always a defensive master, right? He's a master while being a freak athlete. George Foreman, in some of his best work, just happened to be one of the commentators watching that Renato Hernandez, and Hernandez is the WBC champion going into the fight, being completely outclassed by a better athlete and a better boxer with better defensive skills. And that was Mayweather, who at the time is young. He's like maybe 21 or something like that. And as you're looking at the film, and Mayweather was not that popular at the time, right? Mayweather had a hard time drawing crowds. But as you're looking at the film, you understood that Mayweather, who was trying to get his first title, at that moment was one of the best talents in the entire sport. Now, just understand that Crawford is like LeBron, where you look at him, both guys are decent athletes. I'm not saying they're non-athletes, I'm saying they're decent athletes. But you look at him and you understand his athleticism. Right? Mayweather, I'm just telling you, is like MJ. You're looking at him and the athleticism jumps off the page. It slaps you in the face. Older Mayweather loses some of the athleticism. But younger Mayweather is Jordan. He is Usain Bolt, right? He's that guy who is just off the page. World-class athletes are here. Mayweather was here, right? Just like Jordan at one stage seemed to be able to outjump everyone except Dominique Wilkins, another freak athlete, in the gym, right? You could just sense that Mayweather was quicker twitch, just moved faster than everyone else. Now, just like LeBron has some things over MJ, LeBron from day one was a better passer than MJ, right? Day one, I'm not kidding, right? LeBron's one of the best passers I've seen in my life. His game, by the way, is very similar to Joker's game. In other words, both of the guys, I would say neither of them's a freak athlete, but both of them intuitively understand the sport and are some of the greatest to have played it. That's how I view Terence Crawford. So, the big question, and I know I'm going to hear from the Crawford crowd, and hey, I love Crawford. I believe he not only beats Spence, I believe he drops Spence. Right? I love Crawford. I understand there's a dynamic to Crawford's game that Mayweather doesn't have. Right? Crawford is ambidextrous. Right? I get that. Crawford can go way off script. Right? Mayweather, defensively blessed, he's always in that Philly shell construct. Right? I'll agree with that. Right? But I will say the Canelo victory is the dividing line. Mayweather looked so dominant in that fight that I'm just going to have to wait and see if Crawford can match that level of performance, where Mayweather is not even prime Mayweather for the fight, right? He has wounded hands at one point, his father in the corner. Mayweather comes over, he's holding up a hand like this. It's a private moment. The camera catches it. His father looks at him. Floyd Sr.'s in the corner for that fight, thank God, because it's a compelling moment. And Floyd says, "Your hands," to young Floyd. And Mayweather Jr. just kind of like nods at him, right? And you understand this is older Mayweather. This isn't even prime Mayweather. And he literally deconstructs Canelo. Dominates the first half of the fight. Hell, wins at least half of the second half of the fight. It's a domination. Right? If you heard the Dave Moretti scorecard in the Haney-Lomachenko, understand it belonged in the Mayweather-Canelo fight. Right? Crawford is going to have to beat some other great fighters. He's going to have to go through Errol Spence. Then he's going to have to go through Jermell Charlo. Don't sleep on the best at 154. Hint, it wasn't Sebastian Fundora. Right? Crawford is going to have some fights where he goes through big names and it's not close. In what round did you reach the conclusion that Mayweather was on his way to a comfortable victory over Manny Pacquiao? Understand, a guy like Pacquiao, freak athlete, much faster hand speed than Terence Crawford. Right? A southpaw like Crawford. Right? At what round did you reach the conclusion that Mayweather was on his way to a comfortable win over Manny Pacquiao? Because that's what happened. Right now, I know the Crawford side of the line has an argument. Some of the fastest hands I've ever seen in my life in any weight class belong to Amir Khan, Folks, Khan's lightning quick. You could question Khan's chin, especially after the Breeders-Prescott fight. You can't question the hand speed. Let me say, too, I saw where Nigel Benson was talking smack with Kell Brook. Folks, Kell Brook, we saw it in the ring. Kell Brook has much faster hands than Errol Spence. Right? Just understand, Terence Crawford went through both. Neither guy makes it to the last third of the fight against Crawford. That's the other thing, too. Crawford has a closer thing going on that no one seems to notice. Right? The only other fighter I can think of who we, for some reason, overlooked the knockouts. And we looked at the guy and we thought, oh, this guy's a smooth dude, but he's not a closer, is Ray Leonard. Right? Crawford is like Leonard. Crawford ends fights. Right? Maybe it's the laid-back persona Crawford has outside the ring. I don't know. Maybe if Crawford walked around like Benavidez or Tyson or Nigel Benn, we would say, oh, this guy's a closer. Right? Crawford is as much a closer as those guys. Right? So the story is still being written. But I want people to consider Mayweather's best work. Right, folks? Manny Pacquiao had very close fights against Marquez. Right? Very close fights. Whatever side of the decisions you were on, very close fights. And, of course, Marquez stops Manny Pacquiao. We forget that Floyd fought Marquez. It wasn't close. I want you to look at that film, too, because, again, that's past peak Floyd. Right? That's past peak Floyd. And as you look at that film and you look at Mayweather's timing and legs, you just realize Mayweather is a completely different level of athlete than Marquez. Right? Mayweather was that much faster. That fight looks like a mismatch by the start of the third round. Right? You understood that while Manny Pacquiao could be lulled into giving away his athleticism, Mayweather could not. Now, the Crawford people will point to the Castillo fight. The first Castillo fight is Mayweather's Waterloo. Right? By the way, in my favorites folder is a show on Rocky Marciano. And they actually have the Roland LaStarza-Marciano rematch. Now, understand, the first fight's controversial. Rocky, who retired unbeaten, like Mayweather, wins the first fight by split decision. The LaStarza side, LaStarza was from New York City. You had a lot of New York City press people at that first fight. The LaStarza fight, you have a whole group who believe that Rocky may have lost that fight, including Lou Duva, by the way, who believes that Marciano might be the best fighter in history, right? We all have our personal favorites. But the first fight was a split decision. They have a film of the second fight. I want you to sit down and watch that film. LaStarza is back foot. LaStarza's a boxer. He's not Ali, right? He's not a high-level boxer. He's not Larry Holmes. Right, folks? I'm just telling you, LaStarza makes it into the double digits in the second fight. In other words, he never gets stopped inside of 10 by Marciano. He does get stopped in the fight. But let me just point out, there's stretches of the fight where he's outboxing Marciano. He's making Marciano look amateurish. Right? Even the unbeaten fighters, the Rocky Marcianos, they all have that one fight that's iffy. For Mayweather, it's the first Castillo fight. The Crawford crowd is going to say, and they should, Would Crawford have looked that challenged by Castillo? Right? That's an open question. Right? It's doubtful. Let's just say that's a question. Another fight that's open to interpretation is Mayweather's fight against Emmanuel Augustus. Now, a lot of Mayweather's game involved feints, letting you know, hey, player, are you certain that your defense is ready for this left hook? Right? Mayweather kept opponents covering up. Right? You were an opponent. You were supposed to be afraid of what Mayweather could do. You were supposed to be reading his feints. The Drunken Master, yes, that was the nickname Augustus ran red lights. It threw Mayweather. Folks, that's one of the hardest fights Mayweather has had. You want to know who agrees with that? Floyd Mayweather himself, who is one of the better interviews in boxing. Right? So, let's just say they're different fighters. Right? Mayweather is from the MJ, Ray Leonard side of the ledger. Right? Freakish hand speed. You don't notice it as much because Mayweather, when he was younger, wasn't a combination puncher. Right? You notice the hand speed with a Ray Leonard or an Andy Ruiz because they let their hands go. Mayweather was always a surgeon. Right? He'd let a counter right hand go. He'd let a lead left hook go. Right? But he didn't quite open up. Freakish hand speed. Spectacular legs that Crawford doesn't have. But Crawford's a closer in a way that Floyd wasn't at the higher weights. Right? I would argue that Mayweather fought the better competition. Right? When you see an Oscar De La Hoya, you need to realize that he beat Julio Cesar Chavez. He beat Ike Quartey. He beat Fernando Vargas. I would argue he beat Shane Mosley at least once. I know the referees disagree with me, right? The referee and the commentators. Okay, fine. Right? But Oscar was ferocious, as was Diego Corrales. Right? Ferocious. Right? Castillo fights Corrales. That's one of the great fights in history. Right? Well, I would argue that Mayweather, who fought a long time, fought some higher level people than Crawford has fought to date. Right? Crawford's going to have to close big to close the opponent gap. And then we'll be talking about this for years, right? Because at the end of the day, they're both great fighters, right? Mayweather's already in the Hall of Fame. Trust me when I say Crawford will be as well, right? And of course, the Mayweather people will talk about Crawford's fight against Mean Machine, where Crawford gets dropped, right? Of course, the comeback from the Crawford people are going to say, well, the ref missed it, but didn't you get dropped by Zab Judah? Right? Let's just say the Mayweather-Crawford debate's going to have a back and forth. Let me hear yours in the comment section of this YouTube video. Thanks for stopping by.